So we know that the Southern Poverty Law Center has been taking the funds meant to fight racism and bigotry and hate, and instead have incited it by funding the very organizations that spread in the first place. But what is being discovered is that the SPLC may have actually been working with the Biden administration to help fund insiders to help instigate the January 6th insurrection. Watch this.
Well, you mentioned President Biden, and there was a suggestion by Jim Jordan today here on Fox. He suggested that, or he's at least looking into the possibility that not only did the Biden administration know about this, but they may have actually had the FBI or perhaps the FBI working independently even before the Biden administration took over, was also paying some of these people for incidents, and he even suggested we're looking into January 6th, where we know that there were 26 confidential informants of the FBI there, and whether they were stirring up trouble there. That is, this was a pattern that people in power were using to prove their narrative.
Certainly, and they used everything they could to malign President Trump. You name it, from the DOJ to the Steele dossier created under President Obama, all the way through Hillary Clinton's campaign, and now here you have President Biden, and the Charlottesville lie that was used over and over and over against President Trump, which was a smear to him and his good name, but nobody ever refuted that. And I think it's great that Chairman Jordan is looking into these things, and we may find out there is some there with some of the money spent to actually by administration or political figures or government figures, to smear President Trump. It seems every other government agency was misused to smear President Trump.
That's right.
Now, here's what they're talking about regarding Jim Jones being on Fox earlier and talking about looking into these informants and how they're linked with the SPLC. The quote here I wanted to read to you guys is right here. For years, anyone asking why so many confidential sources were embedded at the Capitol got smeared as a conspiracy theorist. Now, the chairman of the House Judiciary is asking it under oath with subpoenas. If a scandal-plagued left-wing activist group, the SPLC, was quietly cutting checks to the same informants the FBI was running, the public deserves to know who was really steering the events of that day and who was getting paid twice to be there.
He's committed to come. We also sent a subpoena yesterday for documents dealing with this fraud. They called these guys field sources. Here's a key question I have, too. Were any of the guys they were paying, was the Biden Justice Department paying these same guys confidential human sources? We know 26 confidential human sources were at the Capitol on January 6th. 4 went in the Capitol. They weren't authorized to do so. I want to know if any of these guys were double dipping and taking money from the government and from the Southern Poverty Law Center. That's one of the things we want to find out.
That would be another new chapter if true and if proven. Sir, thank you for your
Now, Jim Jordan, in his 2025 House Judiciary Committee hearing, grills his ex-FBI agent regarding how these 26 informants at the January 6 riots were paid. And he also reveals and exposes how the FBI under the Biden administration actively worked to make disinformation and cover up the Hunter Biden laptop.
In your testimony, you talked about overspending on confidential human sources. Do you believe, is it likely these 26 were being paid by the FBI at the time they were doing this?
I think that's, if they're a confidential human source that's actually on the books, then it's highly likely that they were
Highly
paid,
likely they're being paid
if they were tasked to do
even
that.
if they weren't specifically asked to be there that day. You think there's likely they were paid?
So if they weren't asked to be there, I think usually they're giving us like a lump payment periodically, so it wouldn't be for a specific tasking necessarily. It'd be hard to answer that.
Are you familiar with what was released here earlier this week, the text communications between FBI agents regarding October 14th, 2020 New York Post story on the Hunter Biden laptop? Have you had a chance to review those?
I haven't seen those text messages.
Let me just read a couple to you here. It says, nobody on the call is authorized to comment on the New York Post story. Twitter is treating this as disinformation. I just want to read something that took place earlier that day. The way this day worked is the story came out. That day, Elvis Chan, a guy with the FBI, is meeting with the tech company, something he did on a regular basis in the run-up to the 2020 presidential election. At that meeting, someone asked, hey, there's this New York Post story. Is the laptop real? And we know this took place because we deposed Mr. Brady Olson, and he gave us this information. And he said, when that question was asked, the response was, yes, the laptop is real. Then we get these text messages, which we didn't have before. We just got them this week. These text messages which relate what happens after that. So the FBI has confirmed to Twitter at a FITF meeting on October 14th that the laptop is real. And then we have these text messages back and forth where they says no one is authorized to comment further. Twitter is treating this as disinformation. You find that troubling that the FBI knew something was real, confirmed it at a meeting, then changed their story and went to no comment, no further comment, and allowed the tech companies to run with the idea that this story was disinformation?
Yeah, I do think that's problematic. And I do think the relationships that they tried to build with members of the FBI with these other organizations were problematic.
Yeah, and the ranking member said, the Republicans want to say the FBI was political, and what really wasn't the case. If this is not political, I do not know what is.
So yeah, that's big. The FBI under the Biden administration is covering up this stuff. What else are they covering up? We really need to see this January 6th information regarding the Southern Poverty Law Center and how they may be involved. Now, this letter here that I want to read a few passages from because it's really quite revealing is from Jim Jordan to Brian Fair, who is the current president of the Southern Poverty Law Center. So the committee is in receipt of your letter dated April 30th, 2026, excuse me, regarding our request for documents related to the Southern Poverty Law Center's SPLC's use of members of extremist groups as quote unquote field sources and close collaboration with the Biden-Harris administration. Your response failed to include a single responsive document and misrepresented both the timeline and purpose of the committee's oversight. Accordingly, the committee has invoked compulsory process to obtain the requested materials. Now, this letter ends here with letting this Brian Fair know that it's the Supreme Court's obligation and responsibility to conduct this kind of oversight and to look into these kinds of matters. Now, the Supreme Court here has recognized that Congress has a broad and indispensable power to conduct oversight, which encompasses inquiries into the administration of existing laws, studies of proposed laws, and surveys in our social, economic, and or political system for the purpose of enabling Congress to remedy them. Now, pursuant to the rules of the House of Representatives, the Committee on the Judiciary is authorized to conduct oversight of criminal justice matters and judicial proceedings. Accordingly, the committee is initiating compulsory process to obtain the documents and material needed to fulfill its oversight and legislative obligations. Please find the enclosed subpoena compelling production of the requested documents by June 3rd, 2026. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, Jim Jordan, Chairman. So that brings us to the elephant in the room, ladies and gentlemen. Did the SPLC pay or fund instigators for the January 6th riot? We know that they have a history of fanning the flames of violence, fear, and racism instead of extinguishing them like they say it's their mission to do. However, as it's always been said, truth is often stranger than fiction. And hopefully soon, ladies and gentlemen, we'll actually have the documentation that shows just where this funding went. And maybe, just maybe, also shows that the SPLC, in cooperation with the Biden-Harris administration, worked to instigate the January 6th riots. And it's not just some kind of right-wing conspiracy. But let me know in the comments below. Do you think it's just a right-wing conspiracy? Do you think something will actually come out of this? I'm excited to see what happens, and I'm hoping you are too. Please let me know in the comments below. And thank you for watching.